Welcome to Tax File Special. I am your host, Lauri Bala Hassan. Tax File Special is where we engage with industry leaders shaping Nigeria's economic and tax landscape. In this episode, we spotlight the intersection of taxation and the telecommunications sector. Today, we sit down with Mr. Carl Toriola, CEO, MTN Nigeria, to discuss corporate tax compliance, digital economy taxation, and the evolving business environment. We begin with the latest tax news, followed by our exclusive interview. Stay with us for an insightful conversation. And now, the news. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has taken a bold step towards modernizing tax administration with the introduction of its national e-invoicing solution, a cutting-edge system designed to enhance tax compliance, improve transparency, and streamline revenue collection. The new initiative, which aligns with international best practices, will provide real-time visibility into business transactions and financial data by leveraging advanced digital technology. The pilot phase, set to begin in July 2025, will involve selected large taxpayers before a nationwide rollout. Ejura Etu Okanachi was at the event and now reports.
Speaking at a stakeholders engagement session in Lagos, Amina Ado, Coordinating Director of the Large Taxpayers Group, represented by Dr. Olabode Olatunji, Director of Large Taxpayers Telecoms and Financials, highlighted the transformative impact of the e-invoicing system. He described it as a strategic enabler that will foster efficiency, transparency, and accountability in the tax administration.
The FIRS has embarked on the implementation of national e-invoicing solution, a transformative initiative aimed at providing real-time visibility into business transactions and financial data. This initiative is a strategic step towards fostering efficiency, transparency, and accountability in Nigeria's tax administration system.
According to the Chief of Staff to the Executive Chairman, Tayo Koliosho, the platform, also known as Merchant Buyers Service Solution, is a key component of the FIRS's Tax Administration Solution 3.0.
Our new initiative, which is on the electronic invoice, which is also a merchant buyer system. The idea of that is to integrate their electronic resource planning, their point of sale solutions, their cloud solution, their accounting platform, so that they can have an integrated reporting platform that then integrates with our own tax administration tool. This is all part of our continuous journey to getting to Tax Administration 3.0, which is the final stage of tax administration where the taxpayers can do a lot of things naturally within their ecosystem.
Uphold fairness, justice, and equity in the areas of concern raised by a range of stakeholders in the Nigerian space is their call to the President and the Tax Reform Bill Committee as the Tax Reform Bill public hearing commenced. Mariam Julde Adura, who was present at the Senate's public hearing, said stakeholders made up of ministries, departments, and parastatals, civil society organizations, the academia, the business owners acknowledged the need for a new taxation system in Nigeria. They, however, had concerns with certain areas of the bill which affected them directly. Mariam Julde Adura reports.
They said the public hearing is proof that the President and the Tax Reform Bill Committee have respect for the Nigerian citizens and are willing to carry everyone along. A total of 75 stakeholders were invited to the Senate public hearing. The House of Representatives heard the submissions of 53 stakeholders, indicating that the National Assembly and the Tax Reform Bill Committee has collated data enough to guide further deliberations on the bill.
Nigerians have expressed confidence in the bold step taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to rejig the archaic Nigerian taxation system. This vote of confidence on Mr. President and the Tax Reform Bill Committee is coming on the heels of the recently concluded Tax Reform Bill public hearing. Mariam Nta Akure, who spoke to a cross-section of citizens, reports that according to them, the tax reform bill is a welcome development to grow the country's economy and make life easier for the citizenry. They said the public hearing is a proof that the President and the Tax Reform Bill Committee have respect for citizens and are willing to carry everyone along. The reports.
Above are some of the submissions of various organizations on certain adjustments made to the tax remittance structure.
These reforms are not just about taxation. They are about building a fairer, more efficient, and growth-oriented tax system that supports businesses, encourages investment, and ultimately improves the lives of Nigerians.
There is need now for this all-important reform as part of Mr. President's economic agenda.
So the presumptive regime that we propose, therefore, is meant to allow for regulation, and we're working with the Joint Task Board to develop this detailed regulation.
Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, said the reform bill seeks to eradicate double taxation, stop economic distortion, ease compliance, and ultimately grow the local Nigerian economy.
Nobody is repealing Free Trade Zone Act. It is never proposed in the bill. And if you all listened to Senate President yesterday, he gave one caveat that people should read the bill before they comment.
And that wraps up the news.
Welcome once again to Tax Fight Special. In this exclusive segment, we present interviews with experts in the field. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Carl Toriola, the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria Communications PLC. Prepare yourself for a thought-provoking and engaging discussion. Thank you so much for having us today. Can we meet you, sir?
It's a pleasure to have this discussion with the FIRS. My name is Carl Olutokun Toriola. Proudly Nigerian, born in Ile-Ife a little bit over 50 years ago, and spent most of my childhood on the campus of Great Ife, including my primary, secondary, and university education, my first degree in what we call Great Ife. I did my NYSC in Port Harcourt, and I pretty much specialized after a master's degree in communication systems in the telecommunications industry for the last 29, 30 odd years or so. So I consider myself to be a thoroughbred telecoms professional, having worked with Ericsson, what back then was V-Mobile, and now with MTN for over 18 years.
That's quite impressive. I'm sure you are qualified to call yourself a veteran.
I think so.
Yeah. So I'll call you a veteran.
Thank you.
All right. So going to the question, to ask you that MTN Nigeria proudly is one of the country's highest taxpayers as of today. How do you see the role of taxation in fostering Nigeria's economic growth? And what strategies has MTN adopted to ensure compliance with tax regulations?
Okay, well, first of all, I think we were about 2 years ago one of the highest taxpayers. The volatility of the market has affected us like everybody else, but we're confident we're going to go right back to our rightful position of number one. But we're extremely proud of our award by the FIRS as being one of the most compliant taxpayers. Why is this important? Look, the payment of taxes is extremely important for the development of a society. And a large corporate like ours that touches every life in Nigeria through the services that we provide, we believe we must be a shining example of compliance on taxation. And why is taxation important? Because it drives what government does. Government provides infrastructure, government provides healthcare services, transportation, support for the needy, education, and without responsible corporate citizens ensuring that they pay tax in the most compliant manner possible, it's impossible for government to do this. And we think it is not just an obligation, a legal obligation to pay tax, but it's a moral obligation for an organization like ours to ensure that we're compliant, we pay taxes punctually to support the government and the people of Nigeria.
Yeah, now just taking you out of the corporate tax payments. Okay, so why is it so hard for people to get to pay their taxes? Even the rich run away from paying taxes. I think it's something that we need to look at. Why do you think so?
I think it's a cultural thing. Look, the truth is this nation is young. In the context of nations, the other country where my mother's from has been in existence as a democracy for 900 odd years. So there are things that we learn and cultures that we develop. I think, first of all, every human being wants to maximize the amount of cash that they have. So even in the rich countries, people, while even the most tax compliant people try to minimize their tax obligation. But I think it's the quid pro quo. As we evolve as a democracy, as the country evolves, seeing what the government does for you encourages people to be compliant on tax. But let me also say this, you have to have both sides of the equation. You have to have the citizens, corporates and individuals that are willing to pay tax, but there also has to be a consequence of non-compliance for the country to move forward. You will see in a lot of other countries, Western countries, you will see there are a lot of litigation, prosecution through criminal activities for tax avoidance. And that's part of the stick as you encourage the carrot for people to be more compliant.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. So, sir, then taking to the next question. As Nigeria transitions into a more digital-driven economy, how can tax policies evolve to better support telecommunications companies while ensuring sustainable government revenue?
So, look, there are many ways to support the telecommunications industry. Some of those lie under our primary regulator, the NTC, but the FIRS is an absolutely critical part of allowing this industry to thrive. Having clarity on taxation policies, and I think the tax bill that's in progress is really very good for the country. Reducing the number of taxes that are imposed. We pay approximately 54 taxes across different tiers of government. Having long-term stability and a long-term outlook into introduction of new tariffs, taxes, excise duties, etc. It's important for investors to be clear on what taxes we are paying, how that will evolve over time, and for the policies to be applied consistently. But that's just one part of it. Look, the telecommunications industry carries the digital economy of Nigeria. And this will never, ever happen by the grace of God, inshallah. But if you shut down all the telecoms companies for 24 hours, you'd understand how important they are to the economy and the livelihood of people, safety, health, etc. Now, the challenge that we face is that as we're providing these services, we carry a huge burden in terms of the capital expenditure that we need to continuously expend to maintain these networks and to upgrade them. And we pay our fair share of taxes in Nigeria, in country, because we are registered here, we operate here, we employ people here. There are a lot of other OTT service providers, over-the-top providers. You can look at Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, etc., that have minimal contribution to this economy and minimal tax exposure to this economy. And while the telecoms industry on a global basis spent $55 billion on capital investment, the OTT players spent about $1 billion. So the operators that are in country, that are paying taxes, that are contributing to the fiscus, that are helping the FIRS collect withholding taxes, are at the same time bearing a considerable amount of burden in the capital expenditure. While there are other players in Nigeria that really have minimal physical, local, and taxable presence and don't contribute in a way to the economy that we do. So that's something that also needs to be looked at by the authorities. But most importantly, reduction of the number of taxes that we pay, clarity, a tax bill that is passed through, and then we know what we're operating with going into the future. Businesses want predictability. Once you give them predictability, they know how to operate and they can make a success out of it.
Thank you so much. You know, the tax reform bill is we call it a controversial bill. And the tax reform bill is going to address the multiplication of tax. We know people pay different taxes over the years and all that. And if you have been following, you know that the law, the tax law we're using now is obsolete. It's almost as old as Nigeria itself. So this is why it's going to address it. So I just want to tell you that, but it's past the second reading, and of course we are going to the public hearing, and if it's been signed to law, we're going to have a centralized system of tax collection in Nigeria.
I do know, I've met with Mr. Taiwo several times, and I don't think I've ever found anyone that manages taxation issues that is capable of delivering the message around this in such a crisp and humorous manner. He's an incredible salesman and not something you usually see with tax people. And I'm convinced that this is a good thing. You're absolutely right. The tax laws are completely antiquated. And we need a revamp of the laws to consolidate them, all these fees and levies that we pay on an ongoing basis. So you have clarity and simplicity. Simplicity also allows people to file for taxes and pay their taxes. Yeah. Sometimes people are willing to, but just the complexity on its own is enough to scare people away. And it's almost as if the tax laws today encourage people to avoid paying tax altogether, rather than avoiding them on a lower level to pay their taxes in a responsible manner. So I think it's a brilliant bill. I'm very hopeful that it will pass, and I think it will be good for Nigeria as a whole. So
from a telecoms industry perspective, what are the key related challenges businesses face? And what reforms would you recommend to enhance tax compliance and ease of doing business in Nigeria?
To be honest, look, the challenges we face outside of the taxation issue are security, infrastructure, the devaluation, which I think the worst is behind us. Our ability to continuously increase tariffs in line with inflation. If you don't do that, the industry is going to die sooner or later. But those are I think mostly behind us. The truth is, what we would want as a business on the taxation front, it's already in the pipeline with the new tax bill. So we just want that to be passed. We want clarity. We want to be able to be compliant, to understand the law, ensure that we have a good working relationship with the FIRS, such that if there are gray areas, we can clarify them in an amicable manner, and we can be good corporate citizens. So we believe, honestly speaking, 2025 is going to be a good year for Nigeria. And it's as a result of all the policies that have been put in place by the government of His Excellency President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's been painful, but nothing good comes without some sort of pain and sacrifice. The last 2 years have been painful, but what we will see as a consequence of devaluation of the currency and free floating of the currency and easy movement of currency in and out of Nigeria, the removal of the subsidy, the new tax laws, restoration of the sustainability of electricity and the telecoms industry are going to hold us in good stead for the next 10, 15 years.
Thank you very much, sir. MTN Nigeria recorded impressive revenue growth in 2024 while maintaining strong contributions. Congratulations to you and your team, sir.
Thank you.
How does the company balance profitability and fiscal responsibility? And what lessons can other corporations learn from MTN's approach?
So look, I can only speak to Q3 results because those are the only ones that have been released to the public on the stock exchange. We saw top line growth of over 30%. The problem is our cost structures actually grew over 100% or close to 100%. So in terms of profitability, that shrunk. The truth is we were making a loss, negative shareholder funds, capital reserves. But I think now with the stabilization of the foreign exchange rate, with the tariff increases, we'll go back to profitability in due course. But first of all, it's sustainability that we're concerned about. How do we balance it? The first thing is we understand that we provide a service that is important to the nation, the government and the people. So whatever it takes, we'll continue to provide that service, because if we don't, you can lead to significant problems as a country. And that's our first priority, to continue to serve Nigerians as we should. Having done that, the other things that we have done to try to drive things like our sustainability and our margins is move a lot of our costs from dollar-denominated costs to naira-denominated costs. We're continuously looking for efficiency in the way we do business. As large as MTN Nigeria is, and you can compare it to multiple of other corporates, we only have 5 expatriates. It's Nigerians that are running Nigeria, both because we know that Nigerians have the capacity to do this at the best levels, and also because it's not cheap to hire expatriates as well. We're always looking for ways to get economies of scale, efficiencies in our entire system, and driving for this, and while at the same time looking for ways to support government agencies in going about their duties of governance. So an example of that is acting as a collection agent for the FIRS on VAT, obviously, I think everybody does, but on withholding tax as well, and looking for ways to really support all of these institutions. So that's what we try to do. And we know that, as I said, after the difficult 2 years to really liberalize this economy, we are going to come out on the other side of this into bright sunshine, MTN, and the country Nigeria as a whole.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope to come out shining like your color yellow.
Amen. Amen.
So this will take me to the last question. MTN Nigeria operates in a highly regulated industry. What role can the private sector play in fostering a culture of voluntary tax compliance? And how can FIRS and the government support businesses in this regard?
You're right, we operate in a highly regulated industry, and every time I have concerns around that, I remember a certain advertisement for a tire manufacturer that shows a very fast car and says, power is nothing without control. Meaning that if you have such a large institution or industry like ours, if there are no guardrails and controls, there's a risk of it going off track. So we accept the regulations as a necessity and a positive necessity. We think our responsibility is, in the private sector, is to support the government in showcasing ourselves as shining examples of compliance and the positive sides of compliance. The award that was given to MTN as one of the most compliant or most compliant tax-paying organization is a way of showcasing the perfect examples of how corporate citizens should conduct themselves. The fact that you're engaging with me today to discuss taxation in the country is another example. So I think we need to create role models for the corporate world and small and medium enterprises to look up towards and show them the benefits of these kind of compliance. Investors want to work with compliant companies because they want predictability. They want a company that follows the laws, and when you follow the laws, you can predict the cost of tax. You can predict the cost of compliance. But if you don't follow the laws, you get surprises. FIRS will shut your account, you get a court case here and there, and investors hate that. So as a publicly listed company with a multitude of shareholders, local and international, we want stability, we want a good relationship, and want predictability of the interactions between us and the FIRS and all other government agencies. So giving us clarity is important, giving us an avenue to engage is important, demonstrating to the world how such institutions as the FIRS treat and also mutually respect these organizations is important, and a consequence for non-compliant organizations is very important. Absolutely.
So thank you so much for having us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
And that's it on this special edition of Tax File. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more insightful conversations. Until next time, I am your host, Lori Bala Hassan. FIRS, simplifying tax, maximizing revenue.